Hello out there and welcome to this special radio town hall meeting on whistleblowing by the African Center for Media and Information Literacy, AfricMil, in collaboration with the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, PRIMOG. I am Adaobi Obiabumo, the program manager at PRIMOG. AfricMil is a civil society group that has been promoting the fight against corruption with the weapon of whistleblowing under its project, Corruption Anonymous. This town hall meeting against corruption has the support of the MacArthur Foundation. Today's program has brought together resource persons who will discuss the impact of the delay in the passage of the whistleblower legislation in the whistleblowing process in Nigeria. They will also extract the possibility of the current National Assembly enacting the whistleblower law before their tenure of office elapses. For the listener out there, please remember that you are a part of this meeting. Recall that in December 2016, the federal government rolled out a whistleblowing policy, one of the several mechanisms meant to deter corruption and mismanagement of funds, amongst others. As we talk today, whistleblowing remains just a government policy, having no strong roots in our laws. Efforts in the past to strengthen whistleblowing in Nigeria from the policy's inception to date, unfortunately, has hit a different brick wall. The consequences of this failure are the reign of corruption and impunity in the public service, amongst other vices. For you out there, why do you think passing whistleblowing into law in Nigeria has been almost impossible? How do you view the future whistleblowing in Nigeria without strengthening it through our laws? And what do you think must be done to see that the current National Assembly pass whistleblowing into law with the limited time left to end their tenure? You can begin to send your views to 090-2265-6167. That is 090-265-6167. My guests are eager to start this conversation with me in the studio. I have Abdulaziz, the Deputy Editor, Daily Trust Newspaper, Barrister Godwin Chibu, Principal Partner, Godwin and Chibu Associates, Suleiman Mukhtar, Strategic Communication Manager at Accountability Lab Nigeria, and Godwin Onyacholim, Program Officer at AfricMil. Gentlemen, you're all welcome to the program. If you just tuned in, this is a town hall meeting and we are discussing the impact of the delay in the passage of the whistleblower legislation and the whistleblowing process in Nigeria. And you're right on time as the deliberations are about to begin. The whistleblowing policy operational in Nigeria has many frailties and urgently needs a legal impetus to withstand the fight back against corruption. It is on record that there have been so many failed attempts to pass whistleblower law. Recall that President Muhammadu Buhari recently pleaded with the National Assembly to pass the best possible versions of the Proceeds of Crime Bill, Whistleblower Bill, and Witness Protection Bill. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, in June this year, revealed that there has been a sharp decline in the number of whistleblowers across the country, despite handsome rewards offered to informants. The future of whistleblowing is hanging in the balance as the call for enactment of whistleblowing law increases. The onus now lies on the 9th National Assembly to strengthen Nigerians' fight against corruption with the time left. I have a passionate and very experienced guest in the studio, but let's start this conversation with Godwin Onyacholim, whose organization has been working tirelessly to see that legislation for whistleblowing is backed by law in Nigeria. You're welcome once again, Godwin Onyacholim from AfricMil.
Thank you for having me.
Could you help us set the stage for the conversation? AfricMil has been advocating for the passage of whistleblower bills into law before now. Could you give us a sense of the state of whistleblower bills in the National Assembly and every other thing being done about the whistleblowing legislation?
Okay, yeah, so it's sad that the whistleblowing system in the country remains at the level of policy. There is no law yet, as you know. And over the past years, since 2016, when the whistleblowing policy was introduced, government failed to follow up with perhaps maybe an executive bill so that at least we could have a legislation for whistleblowing. So for now, there are several bills, as you said, we don't even know the number of bills, but we just know there are some in the House of Reps and then there are some also in the Senate, private members bill. As you very well know too, you and I we're at, a session, a retreat organized by the Federal Ministry of Finance, Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit, on a review of the several bills that are, in the National Assembly. And then, at that gathering, the civil society also presents a bill which the stakeholders looked at. At the end of the retreat, it was a 5-day event. At the end of it, there was a harmonization of all the bills as well as the CSO bills, and then we came out with a bill, which we think that could be was good enough, was robust enough to be passed as the whistleblower legislation. So, and that bill, as we speak today, is lying at the desk of the Minister of Finance. She is the one who pushed for that retreat. She is the one who insisted that, it is the Ministry of Finance that has to send, a draft bill to the Federal Executive Council, which will be approved by that council and then be passed to the National Assembly. So, but as we speak now, the Federal Ministry of Justice has worked on that bill, fine-tuned it, and then sent it to the Ministry of Finance. So that bill we learned is on the table of the Minister of Finance. So she is yet to take it to FEC, from where it will be taken to the National Assembly. Why that's the case, we don't know, and it's a sad thing that has been the case, because you and I know that it's about 1 year, and it's over a year now. That retreat was in Kefi in May last year. So, and then now we are in October. Now it's the momentum for politics has gripped everyone. So nobody knows what will happen to that bill.
The last time we had a radio town hall like this on whistleblower legislation, we had someone from the Ministry of Finance who told us that they had, from Ministry of Justice, who told us that they had actually sent the bill to the Minister of Finance, and it's been 3 months. So that means nothing has been done since then. Yeah, so when you try to find out, they will say, Madam is still looking at it, so nothing has been done, and that's regrettable, that we are still where we are. In fact, we are stuck, so we don't know what will happen to the bill now, as it is now, because it is still on the woman's table. It is just for her to take it to FEC, for her other members of the cabinet to look at and then get an approval from that, from the cabinet, and then send the thing to the National Assembly. That's where we are now. Okay, let me quickly shift to Abdulaziz. Abdulaziz, who is the deputy editor, Daily Trust newspaper. We understand that the media, by virtue of the Constitution, are whistleblowers. So the involvement of the media practitioners in exposing corruption is very essential. How has the current state of whistleblowing in Nigeria affected journalists and media houses, which is mandated by the Constitution to hold government to account?
Well, thank you very much. Honestly, this is a very important issue regarding the media and its role in upholding public officials to account. And you made reference to the Constitution, where in Section 22 of the Constitution mandates the media to, at all times, and that's the wordings of the Constitution, that the media should at all times, uphold this accountability role. But there is a snag, a big one. If laws that promote transparency, laws that promote accountability, and also especially laws that provide protection for people that give information are not in place. So people who the media rely on, because the media doesn't operate in a vacuum, the media relies on the information provided to it by members of the public, by public-spirited individuals, people who witness acts of wrongdoing and who decide to blow the whistle on it, either directly to the government or through the media. But from what we have seen, a number of people who had done this same act of patriotism had come under serious persecution. So, and then it serves as an unpronounced, unofficial deterrence that if Mr. A had blown the whistle on an act of wrongdoing and then suffered for that, then it means that I will be careful about what I divulge to the public or what I blow the whistle on. So that is a very serious problem. And then, of course, even in the media space, there are laws and that are anti-press. Recently there were proposed amendments to the NBC Act and also the Nigerian Press Council Act. Of course, it generated a lot of tension in the media space and attempt to resist. We don't know what will come out of that. And if that is allowed to scale through, it will already worsen the already bad situation of ability of the media to perform that constitutional role of upholding the public to account, public officials to account.
So aside from the lack of legislation affecting journalists, it would also affect patriotic citizens who ordinarily would want to divulge information to journalists.
Exactly, that's the point I was making, that because the media relies on information it gets from people who are witnesses, who are privy to some of the things happening, because we can't be everywhere. So if these people begin to fear, as a lot of people I believe right now are, then it means that the media's access to information is curtailed, and corruption and wrongdoing will have a cover, and people could do what they like because they know that other people who could raise eyebrows or who could leak it to the press or to even officials will not have the courage to do that, seeing, as I mentioned earlier, how the deterrence meted out unjustifiably to other people who attempted similar thing in other places.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's move to Godwin Onyachulim. This present administration came on board on three-pronged approach or mandate, one of which is the fight against corruption. So do you think, from what you said initially, that the bill is already at the Ministry of Finance, but nothing has been done? Do you think that there is a lack, it is a lack of will or connivance by some persons to frustrate the fight against corruption?
Well, clearly this is a lack of will on the promoters of the whistleblowing policy. The people who, because as I said, the people who announced that policy ought to have followed up immediately with a bill to the National Assembly for a law, backing up that policy. Since that is absent, then it means that there is no political will. You could easily deduce that it means that there is no will to really say, you want to fight corruption. And as you also pointed out, that could also encourage people who will be working on the sides to frustrate, whatever attempt is being made to ensure that that bill is passed. We had a radio program, somewhere in Kiss FM, which you anchored, and you remember some of the one senator, whose name I don't want to mention now, and then one House member who participated in that event, both of whom said that if the president wants a whistleblowing law today, he can get it. That it's a question of summoning the leadership of both houses and then says, this is what I want.
But he had written to them earlier this year.
Well, we don't know why. Yes, he wrote to them, and then asking that the process of crimes and then the
whistleblower bill,
and then and then the asset.
Proceeds of crimes.
Yes, proceeds of crimes. Those other two bills have been passed into law. So what is left now is the whistleblowing bill. So we don't know what is holding that up. So I don't know how far we can really go.
Big question: what is holding the whistleblowing
it's difficult
legislation?
to judge now. But from what you said, what I can easily, the first thing I really want to talk about to really, say is responsible for it is the absence of the will to do what is
of political
necessary.
will from the actors that are responsible for this. Okay, Abdulaziz, this is not the first time we've heard about whistleblowing legislation. The 8th Assembly, the whistleblower law was passed in the 8th Assembly, but it was not signed into law. In the current Assembly, it is still stalling. What do you think is responsible for this, if I would say, lackluster attitude of the government towards enacting the whistleblower law? Godwin Onyacholom mentioned lack of political will. Are there other factors you think are responsible why we do not have a legislation yet?
Well, that's a very key thing that he mentioned, the issue of lack of political will, because this is something of a policy is about politics, and political decision, political will would impact on the ability or of the policy makers to actually pass whatever is required of them into the law, like for example the whistleblower policy that we are talking about now. But of course there could be many other things. One of it that I see is that especially in the case peculiar to this problem of whistleblower protection law is interagency rivalry. In Nigeria, a lot of times things get missed, opportunities get missed because of infighting between government agencies responsible. We've seen a situation whereby, for example, from the 8th Assembly, or even from the 7th, from the 8th Assembly, we see one member of the House of Representatives, sponsoring one bill, another person from the Senate sponsoring another bill. You have the Ministry of Justice saying, "Oh, this is our thing." The Ministry of Finance saying, "This is ours to handle," and all that. The Ministry of Budget and Planning doing something different. So all those things, when there are people are operating at cross purposes, it can actually hinder any progress. So this is one problem.
But shouldn't the importance of this legislation supersede the interagency rivalry?
No, of course. Ideally, that is it. Ideally, there shouldn't be anything coming on the way of such an important legislation. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, a lot of the times people think about in territorial sense that okay, this is my territory. I will be the one to control this thing, or I will be the one to appoint the head if there is any agency created under this. So all those things, or even to administer the law. So people fight over some of these what you could call mundane things that actually shouldn't matter. But a lot of times you see officials fighting because they just want extra power. They think that if they have the law under their wings, it would mean more power to them. So that is one of the things. Then secondly, I believe also the civil society aspect of the advocacy still need better management and better coordination and push, because we have had instances of resistance of laws like this, but with a very dogged civil society advocacy, it came to pass. Laws like
CSOs need to do more.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Let's now move to Barrister Godwin Chibu, who is the principal partner, Godwin Chibu Associates. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, there have been so many campaigns for a whistleblower law to come to light. What do you think are the gaps in the whistleblower policy currently, and what will be the future, or what will the future hold for the anti-corruption fight in Nigeria if the law is not enacted soon?
All right. I would start by saying that a whistleblower regime does not only contemplate fight against corruption, but a fight against all manners of wrongdoing. So that is why for you to have a proper whistleblower regime, there are basic internationally accepted principles that must be captured in that regime, and one of it is that there must be a stand-alone legislation which regulates the policy. Here we do not have any legislation currently. What we have is a policy of the federal government being administered by PICA, and if you look at the policy document, you will see it only relates to official corruption, and relates to, official corruption generally. It does not relate to other issues of wrongdoing like crimes and all those. So that is a lacuna. That's a gap that needs to be covered, because our problem alone is not corruption. There are other issues that bother the country. But talking of corruption, now since there is no law, it means that so much is left at the discretion of PICA and the Ministry of Justice. Ministry of Finance. Now, if you have a law, somebody can say, look at what the law says that would happen in this situation, and stand by it and have it implemented. But now there is no such law. Now, where you have a legislation will make provision for everything, including who makes the disclosure, how disclosures are made, timeline for investigation of disclosures, reward, provide for a reward system. Most importantly, provide for a protection system for whistleblowers, which entails both physical protection and all other aspects of protection and compensation for whistleblowers who are victimized. Because this is the key thing that discourages a whistleblower or somebody who has information from coming forth.
Victimization.
Okay. So if you look at the federal government policy, the protection it affords is very limited, and that protection only thrives on the influence of the minister and the interest of the Minister of Finance. So if somebody is victimized, and if the minister does not stand her foot on the ground to make sure that the person is given, even if it is administrative remedy, there will be no remedy for that person.
So you think the legislation would encompass all the issues that you have highlighted?
Yes, a proper legislation will cover what I've highlighted and more.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's now shift to Suleiman Mukhtar, who is the Strategic Communications Manager at Accountability Lab Nigeria. One of our guests did mention that if we do not have legislation, to an extent, it will prevent citizens from blowing the whistle. So what do you think ordinary citizens, like I said earlier, would continue to grow cold on reporting or exposing corruption? How dangerous is this to our country, Nigeria?
I think we need to start looking at the whistleblower bill, like you said, in a more broader manner. It transcends beyond holding government accountable. It also goes into holding big corporations accountable and other facets of the economy. And not just even, so it doesn't just protect or victimize, in quotes, the government, or it also ensures that other businesses have the law, make sure that they actually stick to their guns and ensure that they do things within by the book, or else somebody from the office is actually at liberty to actually report this anonymously. We remember back in 2016 when this thing came up first, we got thousands and thousands of reports. Now, because of poor legislature, like the lawyer here has highlighted, we've had that dwindle down a whole lot, significantly. So if we don't find a way to ensure that people are protected, because the weaponization of law is something that we do very swiftly in this country. We're seeing that playing out with ASU and the federal government currently. And if there are no clear-cut statements, because law does not cover ambiguities, so if there are no clear-cut statements that actually protects each citizen who come forward that they want to actually blow the whistle on certain issues, then it becomes a problem. Because I know one of the gaps the whistleblower policy does not cover is it does not protect, it does not give you immunity. So that means if in the process of investigation, based on the information you provided, if we find out that you were party at any point, you also get the same punishment. Now, there is a double-edged sword there. There is the part of responsibility on your part for your actions, just to make sure that the reason you're blowing the whistle is not because you are aggrieved. But there's also another part of somebody can weaponize that and ensure that you also suffer that thing about, if I'm going to go down, we're all going to go down together. So it's a very funny situation, but I think the protection of the whistleblower should be paramount, because we have to look at it pragmatically on the bigger scale of the impact of what that person is going to do over the smaller part of it.
protection of whistleblower, and the person listening to me, you may just be one of the whistleblowers tomorrow and you need protection. So I would open the phone lines down for you to join the conversation. And why do you think passing whistleblowing into law in Nigeria has become almost impossible? And how do you view the future of whistleblowing in Nigeria without strengthening it through our laws? And what do you think must be done to see that the current National Assembly pass whistleblowing into law with the limited time left for their tenure? Barrister Godwin, you have done a lot of work on drafting whistleblowing bills, and there was so much expectation. How far did that effort go, and what was the stumbling block in the end?
I think that AfricMail will be in a position to answer as to that of the CSOs. We've done a draft bill for CSOs, and then we have reviewed that bill, and I think AfricMail is in custody of that bill currently, and
so Godwin Onyachalam would be in a better position to answer.
Then, if for that of the federal government, I was part of the participants in the 5-day retreat on the review of the bill in May 2021. I think that program was from 24th of May to 28th of May, where the bill was reviewed
in Kefi, to be precise.
In Kefi, yes, and then an agreed version. An agreed version was arrived at, and then the Minister of Justice was asked to go and finalize it, and then to send to PICA, and then for onward transmission to the FEC, and then for possible submission to the National Assembly. Like Mr. Onyachalam said, the information I have is that that bill has been lying on the table of the Minister of Finance till today without anything happening since that May till now. So I wouldn't know why that is the case. Like he said, it shows, and Mr. Abdulaziz said, it shows lack of will to actually pursue this policy properly. Because if not, I know that if the government, like he said, wants that bill passed, the federal government would have stood its position and push for the National Assembly to pass that bill.
Okay. So, thank you so much. Hello.
Hello.
And where you're calling us from?
Okay, my name is Yunus Abdullahi, and I'm calling from Mukarkitu.
Let's hear you, Yunus.
I quite appreciate the honest views and contributions of members of discussion in the studio. They've been quite frank in their submissions. But I think on the issue of maybe it was Abdulaziz that said the civil society organizations actually have to do more. Yes, I align with his position. The civil society organization has somehow become not entirely a part of it has become so lethargic and has become like an extension of some government establishments whereby they even go out to defend them at times when issues of corruption are being reported in the media. You see one civil society organization will just call on the press, address the press conference, say no, they are not this and that and all. So I think the CSOs have to engage in some sort of individual introspection and inner cleansing of their setup so that they'll be able to achieve their goals and mandates as non-governmental organization. And also, one of your guests actually addressed the Honorable Minister of Finance saying that woman, you understand? No. For me, that's somehow disparaging and condescending. For you to describe an Honorable Minister as just that woman, you understand? It should be addressed that because she's a woman. Would that your guests have actually addressed a male counterpart that way? So please, let's respect our women, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's noted. He heard what you said. So do not address the minister as that woman. All right, thank you for that. Mukhtar Suleiman, you work with an NGO, and you've heard what the last speaker said, that CSOs need to do some sort of introspection. And Abdulaziz also mentioned that CSOs need to do more. So aside from advocacy, what other tools or mechanisms should the CSOs deploy in pushing for a whistleblowing legislation?
I think what most people need to understand is that at the core of most non-governmental organizations and CSOs, the functions of most of these organizations is not to serve as an antagonizing force against the government, but for them to see us as a partner with the government to ensure that the dividends of democracy can trickle down to everybody else across board in the country. We're doing our best. Of course, there are going to be some lapses, but I would also want to ensure that we understand that the lapses of the civil society organizations does not exonerate the government from their own personal responsibilities, because with or without the presence of civil society organizations, government should know what their functions are. They should be able to create institutions and structures that ensures that they hold themselves accountable and to high esteem. And however, as the situation is currently, even across the world, there is need for united force, united voices to ensure that we can actually push. And we know that all 200 million Nigerians cannot come together and push the government. So what do? We try as much as possible to form that small clusters of NGOs pushing from different angles, ensuring that we are looking forward to achieve one.
Can the CSOs alone do that, or do they need the collaboration of citizens?
Yes, of course, we do, because at the end of the day, we're not just doing it for ourselves. And beyond being beyond being CSOs, because to say CSOs is to make it sound as if CSOs exist in abstractions. These CSOs are populated by people who are citizens themselves. We are also citizens of the country who also suffer the same consequences of the same issue. Today I work for Accountability Lab. Maybe I want to blow the whistle on my office. I'm not saying there's any issue, but maybe I want to, but I don't feel like there's a law that protects me to do that. I might feel like I'm unsafe. Or maybe tomorrow I get to work for the government, for example, and because we move around, people move around. I'm not going to stay in one place forever. So I think people need to understand, we understand the gravity of why these things need to be done. And we're trying to, as much as possible, to actually do that. Now, just to add lastly, the proceeds of crime that was passed earlier, I feel while it's good, some content of it, if we're still stalling and lying fallow the Whistleblower Protection Act, then there's a big problem in the government. That lack of, because if you see the proceeds of crime, especially section 7 or 8, I can't remember exactly, it protects the perpetrator, because it says something around like properties that are recovered without I can't remember the exact word, but it protects you from prosecution, so to speak, if there's a civil way these matters were actually
so we need to review that.
No, I'm not saying we need to review that. It's also an encouraging factor to ensure that people but I'm saying that if we can pass a bill like that, an act like that, then what is stopping us from passing an act that protects the whistleblower themselves?
Okay, thank you so much. What is stopping us from passing the act? That is the whistleblowing legislation. Abdulaziz, Deputy Editor, Daily Trust Newspapers. How can the media push the passage of the whistleblowing law and bill into law with a limited time? He has talked about the CSOs, more advocacy from that side. What else can the media do?
Well, the media is like another side of the civil society. We are there to work, and of course we do work hand in hand with members of the civil society organizations. And the media also, just like we mentioned that civil society needs to do more, the media also should do more around, talking about the issues. At Daily Trust, for example, tried to do that a number of times, including very recently, where we did stories that are talking about how this policy is going, going lukewarm because of the lack of the law, and how that can be a very good booster. Because one important thing that people should understand: whistleblowing bill is not all law. It's not about punishment. It's more like a preventive mechanism against corruption. And I think that is where people are not getting it well, and it's helping in making it difficult to advocate or to support the bill, because it takes a lot in terms of resources and finances to investigate a case. But if we prevent the illegality from happening from day one through whistleblowing, for example, it means that there will not be waste of resources by the EFCC or ICPC to probe what has already been done.
So we should adopt preventive measure instead of detective.
Exactly. It's a preventive measure that should be encouraged, that should be seen as more cost effective for the country and more sustainable because it involves citizens. So the fact that citizens are involved, everyone is a whistleblower. It's not about whistleblowing. It's not like appointment. It's not a job that some people will be appointed to. Everyone, can do it. In fact, everyone should do it.
Everyone should do it. Before I let you go, what would you say to that journalist who is demoralized to expose corruption over fear of victimization? In 1 minute, please.
Well, I always tell journalists, colleagues, that I think fear should not be a reason for you not to act. Because for me personally, I always say that, as we say in Nigeria, in the Nigerian lingo, that something must kill a man. So it doesn't have to be because of your job. Especially in the face of escalating insecurity, people are killed even right in their beds. On the road, people get shot and killed. So what more of if you die in the course of doing the right thing? And of course, sometimes it's just fear is what it is, fear. So a lot of times it's not really informed. So you are not really sure. So why should you be afraid of doing something that you are not even certain of the consequences? Nobody says that if you do this, you must be killed or you have to be killed. So it's or you will be harmed or you will be sacked. So let's just try and do our part because you better spend your life in the course of a good thing than in still spend it but without leaving any marks. So it's a civic duty, it's a responsibility to all students, but especially also to media because, as we said earlier in the program, we have that constitutionally assigned duty of upholding public officials to account, which by all means necessary, we have to try and continue doing that.
Continue doing the good work, not for you as an individual per se, but for the country at large. Thank you so much, Abdulaziz. Let's get to Godwin Onyancholem, the program officer at AfricMail. You initially said lack of political will. So what do you think President Buhari should do, aside from pleading with the lawmakers to pass the whistleblower bill? What else can he do to ensure that we have a legislation?
Well, I think the president has enormous powers. He has executive powers. Whistleblowing policy was brought about through an executive order. So he could also, he controls, his party controls the National Assembly, so the leadership, he could summon the leadership. He should go beyond maybe writing to them. If he's really interested in, pushing whistleblowing out there as an effective anti-corruption mechanism, I think what he should do is to summon the leadership of the National Assembly and says, I want this bill before the end of my tenure. Okay. That it is possible, it can be done.
The president has enormous power to do that. So I don't want to sound pessimistic, but what if we do not have a law, the Ninth Assembly? What happens? What would be the fate of the advocacy? I
don't want to contemplate that we are not going to have a law. And Aziz rightly mentioned that there is a lot for us to do as CSOs, and including the media. And that's what we are going to start doing as from next month. We are going to start mounting pressure. Now, first of all, we're going to do some advocacy.
Do we see you go into National Assembly?
First of all, no, to the minister herself, to the Honorable Minister of Finance, on whose table this harmonized bill is lying. So
there are some other bills at National Assembly aside from the one with the Minister of Finance.
No, the one we understand the federal government is trying to push is the one that is lying on the table, the one the Federal Ministry of Justice worked on and passed to the Honorable Minister of Finance for transmission to FEC. So that's the one that is likely to be pushed. That's the one the federal government wants to push.
Not the ones at the National Assembly.
No. Those are private members' bill. So I think that, the Honorable Minister must have had some kind of interaction with, the presidency for her to have taken that step to say, go to KEFI, harmonize these bills, and let's have something on my table.
Okay,
and that bill is now on her table.
I hope the next time we'll have this radio town hall meeting, we will be looking at the outcome of that meeting with the Honorable Minister. Thank you so much, Godwin Onyachole. Godwin Chibu, the burden of Nigeria getting a law to protect whistleblowers now rests on the National Assembly and the Minister of Finance, from what Godwin Onyachole said. What is your level of optimism that this will happen during the 9th Assembly? And what would be your charge to the President's Buhari-led administration on strengthening the policy? In 1 minute, please.
Okay.
First off, are you optimistic?
Yes, I believe it is doable. I believe it is possible. Like Mr. Onyachole mentioned, that President's party is the party in control of the National Assembly. Beyond that, I also want to note that we can see that there is a bit of rapport or good relationship between the leadership of the National Assembly and the President. So the President can leverage on that relationship and have the National Assembly pass that bill. So, and for me, my advice to the President would be, I'm a Christian and then I'll speak from the Christian Bible. The Bible says that nobody who puts his hand on the plow and looks back is worthy of the kingdom. The President has put his hand on the plow by initiating this policy. If he fails to carry it through by getting the bill passed into law, will be like somebody who puts his hand on the plow and look back. So I encourage
we do not want to see the President look back.
Yes. So he should complete the process he has started.
Thank you so much. Mr. President, you have heard Godwin Onyachole. Godwin Chibu, please do the needful. Do not look back. Let's move to Suleiman Mukhtar, who is the Strategic Communications Manager at Accountability Lab Nigeria. We've heard all my guests talk about political will. The President should do X, Y, Z. The citizens on their own part should also be a part of this. So what would be your advice to citizens with genuine intention to expose corruption around them, but are afraid of persecution? Because we know that is a factor, persecution, victimization.
I don't think anybody will willfully want to put themselves in a compromising situation that might not have their best interest at heart. So it is normal. The first law of nature is self-preservance. So it's normal for everybody to always think of how the outcomes are, what the outcome is going to be like for them as a person. So for me, fear is good. Fear is necessary, because without fear we would not survive. I cannot stand here on this pedestal, so to speak, metaphorically, and say, oh, go out there, charge there, shove the fear aside, and ensure that no, I'm not going to do that. That sounds idealistic, not realistic. But so what I can say is we should try as much as possible to push the President, because there are 5 fists in a palm. There are 5 fists. There are 5 fingers in a palm and 5 in a fist. So if we can come together, lend your voices together, what Prime.org and AfricMill is already doing together with MacArthur Foundation and other CSOs out there, let's try as much as possible to see how much noise is good sometimes when it's necessary, how much noise we can make to ensure that this happens. And just another word to the President. Tenors are about legacies. The President has done his bid, passing the Electoral Act, which we're all proud of. This is also something else he can also actually add to his own legacy.
Are you optimistic that he will do that?
Whether he can, I cannot speak to his mindset about doing it or not doing it. But with response to whether he can or can't, he can. Politics is a give and take situation. It's a trade-off. Or it's also a game of interest.
The question is, are you optimistic that he would do that?
It will be very difficult for me to speak to his will or want mindset at this point. But I know in terms of can and can't, he can. And he should. So I would encourage him that he should.
Okay, thank you so much for all your contribution today. And that is how we are wrapping it up on this special town hall meeting. And with this, we have come to the end of the special town hall meeting on whistleblowing and whistleblower protection. Some citizens who blow the whistle do that for patriotic reasons and not necessarily for pecuniary benefits. They should be protected. I sincerely want to appreciate my guest, Abdulaziz, Deputy Editor, Daily Trust Newspapers, Barrister Godwin Chibu, Principal Partner, Godwin Chibu and Associates, Suleiman Mukhtar, Strategic Communications Manager at Accountability Lab Nigeria, and Godwin Onacholem, Program Officer at AfricMail. If you have a message for us or you want to react to what you heard on this program, please reach us through 090-2265-6167. That is 090-2265-6167. Or visit www.corruptionanonymous for more information on how to report corruption. This town hall meeting on whistleblowing and whistleblower protection is organized by the African Center for Media and Information Literacy, AfricMail, in collaboration with the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, PRIMOG. The town hall meeting is supported by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, vibrant, and peaceful world. Get more information about the foundation at its website, macfound.org. You will be duly informed when next we will have a town hall meeting. Please follow us on all our social media platforms at Cora, Nigeria, and official PRIMOG to get timely information on our activities. Many thanks to the AfricMail and PRIMOG teams for their wonderful work. The executive producers of this town hall meeting are Chido Onoma and Okiria Agbonsuremi. Do not fail to report corruption when you see it or encounter it in any form. This is a clarion call for us to have a whistleblowing legislation. I am Adaobi Obiabumo. Thank you.